What's up guys, welcome back. Today's video is all about my rather large June book haul and my summer TBR. Grab yourself a beverage because we're gonna get right into this. So first up, I picked up several books when I went to a Callie, Hart, and Keri event. It was held at Exile in Bookville, which is really awesome indie bookshop right downtown Chicago. I've had a lot of people asking me where this bookshop is located because it is on Michigan Avenue, and if you've never been to Michigan Avenue in Chicago, it is a very touristy business, large buildings front facing the lake. You would usually like drive by and see the bookshop, but it's actually located in the Fine Arts Center. You have to go into the building to access the bookshop, which is on the second floor. Anyways, very cool space. I am so glad I found it because I have a couple books that I picked up during the Callie, Hart, and Keri event that I attended this past weekend. So first up, I picked up Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. This is supposed to be a medieval horror book. It says so right on the front. I really loved reading Once Was Willem by M.R. Keri. And I also enjoyed a couple other medieval horror books, and I think maybe it's a new genre, so I wanted to explore a little bit more, and they happen to have this new release, so picked it up because I was in Rome. There's a quote on the inside cover that says, "And Lucifer said, 'Let us rise against him now in all of our numbers and pull the walls of heaven down.'" Ooh. So from what I understand, this has to do with the horrors of the medieval ages as the horror, is kind of how it was explained to me. Just reading this blurb, I'm not sure what philosophy book I'm gonna read in tangent. Like my first thought is The Revolt of the Angels by Anatole France, or even Herman Miller's Paradise Lost. I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll see how it is. The inside cover pages are pretty cool. It says, "Thomas, a disgraced knight, has found a young girl alone in a dead Norman village. An orphan of the Black Death, an almost unnerving picture of innocence, she tells Thomas that plague is only part of the larger cataclysm, that as the fallen angels under Lucifer are rising in a second war on heaven, and the world of men has become their battleground. Is it delirium or is it faith?" And she goes on from there. So this sounds really cool. I was told it was excellent. So I am very much looking forward to reading this one. Next up, I picked up Keri Lake's Nocticadia. So this is not a new release. It's been out for a while. It is a dark fantasy romance. Dark fantasy, I believe. I love Keri Lake's writing. I am obsessed with her Anathema series. So Anathema, Eldritch, and Westmora when that comes out this autumn. And I believe this series is called The Eating Woods. I believe so. So anyways, I really fell in love with her writing, and this is a standalone novel from what I understand. Again, Exile in Bookville had it in stock, so I wanted to pick it up while I was there. So I'm going to be reading this one as well. And then because it was a Callie Hart event, she of course had a lot of books available that were signed for purchase, and so I already have this copy, but it's not signed. This one is signed, so I needed to pick this one up. This is the indie cover of Quicksilver. Now, I already attended a previous Callie Hart event where I do have a signed hardback cover already. And then, of course, because it was a signed book event, I do own Brimstone, but I do not have the signed version, so I had to pick that up while I was there as well. And she just released her volume 1 of, I believe this is a Mafia series. This is a previous work before Quicksilver came out. Again, this is signed. It was a newer release, and I have never read a Mafia romance before. It's out of my usual genre that I tend to lean towards, so I am more of a fantasy, philosophy, and art history and medieval gal, and so this is gonna be very, very different, but I really enjoy Callie's writing. I love her writing style. I love the way that she creates her characters. I love how she goes through with her plots, and I'm gonna give it a try because why not? And this is what I picked up while I was at Exile in Bookville. Everything else I picked up during various online sales. I feel like this time of year, right before summer, a lot of places start putting like sales on all their books, and I wanted to make sure that I took advantage of it. So I have not done a book haul in several months for this particular reason. So this is why you see quite a bit of books here at this haul. So first off, the first series I picked up was ACOTAR. Now, before you freak out, yes, I have read ACOTAR. In fact, I already own ACOTAR series, but I have them on digital copy. I don't have physical copies, which is what I wanted to pick up. I've been looking at picking up the original indie hardbacks, and honestly, way out of my price range. Like, it's very cool, I appreciate it, but I kind of like these covers better. I think it just looks better with my library. It's definitely more my taste and style, so I wanted to make sure that I picked up the entire hardback catalog of ACOTAR so that I don't have to rely on digital books, and I really prefer the physical copies because I love how the pages feel. I love how they smell, and I just love that feeling of marking and annotating all of my books, which I know you can do digitally, but it's just not the same. So I picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses and all of the 5 books that are so far released. Next up, I did pick up Dracula. Again, I found this as a super sale item. It was over half off, and I thought, gosh, like, that's a really good deal. I've never read Dracula, and I really like this cloth-bound series. I believe earlier this year, or maybe it was like late last year, Penguin started releasing their classics in these beautiful cloth-bound editions. I also picked up the Count of Monte Cristo. Again, it's that really beautiful cloth-bound edition. I don't think I'm going to collect all of them. I really like the feeling of these book covers, and I thought this was a really cool cover for Dracula. As much of a vampire fiend and super fan that I am, I've never read the original Dracula. It's on my list. It's on my list. There's another confession that I have as being a diehard fantasy book girly. I've never read Throne of Glass. Like, not just the Assassin's Blade, the entire series. I have never read any of these books. I know. So again, I found them for a really good deal. I think all of the Sarah J. Maas books are going on super sale because ACOTAR 6 is being released in October and ACOTAR 7 is being released in January. So for those of us who don't have physical copies, like, this is the time probably to ramp up and pick up your copies of them if you have not already. Again, these are not the indie release hardbacks. I believe these are the re-release ones. Yeah, so this was originally released in 2016. This is the 2023 edition. I'm okay not having the OG edition. I prefer this style of cover anyways compared to the OGs, and I understand if you are a diehard Sarah J. Maas fan, yes, make sure, I want you to have all of the editions. I'm so happy for you, but they're just not my style. So yes, so those are the only books, and this is my June book haul, which is quite a bit. Technically there's 17. Actually, there's technically 19, but 17 of which I have, ooh, I take it back, not 17, 12 of which I have never read. So I think that's a pretty good June book haul. So let's talk about what I will be reading this summer. This summer, I am committing myself to rereading ACOTAR, reading Throne of Glass for the very first time, as well as Crescent City for the very first time. Now, I have owned the Crescent City series in hardback for about a year and a half. I knew I was going to read it at some point, but honestly, I wasn't ready to buy all of the Throne of Glass series until I found the entire, like, a complete hardback set. I don't know, there's something about having a complete set where they're all the same height and they all kind of like have the same style of hardback, like the same style of covers, that is really, really important to me. So I've been holding off for that reason. And the amount of people that have just explained how much Throne of Glass has really changed their lives for the better, and how it's just such a life-changing series. I just haven't been ready for it. Like, I'm just not, I wasn't ready for it. And maybe I should have read it like 10 years ago when it came out, or 11 years ago when it came out. But yeah, I've never read Throne of Glass. So I am going to be doing a reread of ACOTAR, and then I'll be doing Throne of Glass. And yes, I am reading Assassin's Blade first because it's the prequel. And then maybe, like, as I go through the Throne of Glass series, I'll pick up the other novellas that are apparently that are available out there from what I understand. Probably going to do a little bit of research on that just to be sure. But if you have any further suggestions about the Throne of Glass reading order, go ahead and let me know. And then I'm going to read Crescent City. Now, I've seen a couple different angles in which people read these series, so that they read ACOTAR and Throne of Glass in tandem. So, like, they'll start with ACOTAR, and then after A Court of Wings and Ruin, then they switch to Throne of Glass, and then they go back to ACOTAR, and I'm just not going to do that because I'm very familiar with ACOTAR. I read it about 1.5 years ago, and it was excellent. So I am going to probably blast through these 5 books first, and then I'll go on to Throne of Glass, and then I'll do the Crescent City series. Now, this is a lot of fantasy, high stakes, and being in the same world for me to read at one time. I remember when I was going through and reading the Flesh and Fire and Blood and Ash books series in tandem, I had to take breaks because it was just a lot to be in the same world over and over and over. So that's why I have a few other books that I'm going to read probably in between, just to kind of break it up, give me a breather, because I am definitely going to need that. So this is where standalones come in, and that's why I picked up Between Two Fires, Blood and Roses. I have Nocticadia by Keri Lake. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with Dracula for being part of summer reads. I feel like before I was going to do the entire series of the Sarah J. Maas verse, I kind of thought about doing just like classic July and just reading all of my classic novels that I have for July, but I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I do have a few shorter books that I would like to read, and they do kind of sprinkle into the fantasy realm. So, of course, we have Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. There's a lot of Nietzschean philosophy that has already been shown through A Court of Thorns and Roses. So at the time of filming, I've already read through ACOTAR, and I am working on A Court of Mist and Fury. And already I can see a lot of points that come through in excerpts that I've read of this, but I've not read the entire piece yet. So I love reading philosophy in tandem with a lot of this high stakes fantasy books, and I think this would pair very well with Throne of Glass and ACOTAR and probably Crescent City too. Another one that I picked up, a shorter one to kind of break things up, is Patti Smith's Devotion. I love Patti Smith as a musician, a poet, and her writing is exquisite. I love it so much. I have almost her entire collection of all of her works so far. And this is just a small kind of why she's compelled to write, and kind of like her little thoughts and philosophies for what I understand that the Why I Write series. I believe this is printed by Yale University, if I'm not mistaken. Oof. Yale University Press, yes. I think this would be a nice little thing to read kind of in between all of these big stories. Another book that I had picked up for reading in 2026 was Edmund Burke's A Philosophical Inquiry into the Origin of Ideas of the Sublime and Beauty. And this is, again, one of those really cool, like, essays that kind of take you into a thought process. It's been described as certainly one of the most important aesthetic documents that 18th century England has produced. I really enjoy reading these deep essays, a lot of which were written in the 17 and 1800s, as well as art critique and art philosophy books, because it was during the Romanticism, the time of the Romantics. A lot of the fantasy books and romance books that I read are based off of works that were done back in the 17 and 1800s, particularly the classics and the Romanticism era. And any kind of like supplemental reading that I can do, such as This one, or even like Beyond Good and Evil, I think is really important to really understand. It's like my version of submersive reading, if that makes sense. I really enjoy deep critical analysis of different kinds of literature, and I read fantasy voraciously at face value because it is so much fun. But I really like digging in deeper, so I think having these two to kind of break things up is definitely going to be a huge help for me. With that being said, I have 5, 9... There are 18 books here on my summer reading list, and I believe now through September 1st, today is June 13th? June 13th, and I think between now and September 1st is going to be a big challenge to get through them, but I think I can do this. This is like a really fun summer reading plan. This is the first time in years that I've put together a reading list, and I don't know why I waited so long to do this. I think what's definitely going to motivate me to get through this list in time is knowing that October we have Avatar 6 coming out. There's also several other fantasy books that come out in that month, and I want to be able to just enjoy them as they come out. I know the Sarah J. Maas books are kind of considered the titans of a lot of the fantasy romance realm, and that's valid in my opinion. October is spooky month. There's quite a few vampire books that I would love to read or sink my teeth into. See what I did there? Including Dracula. See how it goes. I'm up for the challenge. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. It helps me grow as a book content creator. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye.